Hello, all you big, beautiful brains out there. Today, we're going to answer a big question. What is neurodiversity? Before we get started, take a minute to subscribe to Psy vs. Psy. Help out your friendly neighborhood psychologist while I tell you all about neurodiversity. We're going to move fast today here on Psy vs. Psy because neurodiversity is a big topic to put all into one video. There are lots of different angles and perspectives and a bunch of ground to cover. But I wanted to start things off with a quick disclaimer. On this channel, we're scientists, and so we use preferred scientific terminology to refer to most conditions or disabilities. If you found this channel because you're seeking more information about a particular condition and it isn't referred to in the way in which you'd like, please know that we're doing our best to remain scientific and inclusive, and that we are part of the wonderful neurodiverse community. So, let's first talk about the concept of neurodiversity, and then we can discuss the social movement it inspired, called the neurodiversity movement. On the surface, neurodiversity just means that there is a lot of variation in the human brain. That variation can impact the way we think, behave, and learn. Since we don't really see brains every day, and even if we did, it would be difficult to see differences in the weird, mushy, pinky grayness, it can be easy to assume that everyone's brain pretty much looks and acts in the same way. But everyone is different. To say that everyone's brain is the same would be like saying everyone's nose is the same. If everyone had the same nose, things would get real weird real fast. If everyone had the same brain, it'd get even weirder. Just like there is room for a variety of many different types of adorable noses, the neurodiversity idea suggests that there is room for many different types of wonderful brains with many different strengths. The idea of neurodiversity is a core part of a social rights movement by the same name. The term neurodiversity was first popularized by Australian sociologist Judy Singer in her thesis in the late 1990s. The term is a combination of the words neurological, which means brain, and diversity, which is meant to emphasize our differences. Singer is a strong proponent of humanity as a whole, needing different types of brains to survive and thrive as a group. While society often sees the differences in brain types as deficits or deficiencies, Singer would argue that there are benefits because all brains function differently. One of the first groups of people to realize the importance of Singer's neurodiversity movement were adult autistics. Autism, as a neurological difference that impacts social, communications, and sensory needs, was one of the disorders that helped define neurodiversity. Since the early 2000s, ADHD, Tourette's, and OCD have been added to the neurodiversity movement because, like autism, they are all thought to be caused by functional brain differences, which cause a difference in behavior. Learning differences like dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, and developmental speech disorders are also included in the neurodiversity movement, as they are typically the result of functional brain differences. Other, less commonly included differences like schizophrenia, bipolar, and antisocial personality disorder are also being more and more included in neurodiversity as scientists begin to understand better the strengths of the individuals diagnosed with these disorders. The more we study the human brain, the more apparent it becomes that many of the conditions previously thought to be deficits or abnormalities are simply naturally occurring brain differences. While the term neurodiversity could be used to refer to any difference in brain function that affects behavior, the way it is frequently represented is that there are two different categories of brains, the neurodiverse and the neurotypical. Neurotypical brains are those that have the type of brain function possessed by most humans on the planet. This means that, based on sheer numbers, neurotypical people are considered normal, since there are quite simply more of them. There are many different types of neurodiverse brains, and they occur far less frequently in the population, which may be one reason why they were pathologized. Supporters of the neurodiversity movement suggest that it is wrong to pathologize these natural differences that occur, and instead advocate for focusing on accepting the many strengths that go hand in hand with having a neurodiverse brain. Because there really are a lot of measurable strengths associated with neurodiverse brains. People with neurodiverse brains who are autistic typically score higher on intelligence tests like the Raven's matrices and outperform neurotypical people in tasks involving problem solving. Natural behaviors associated with conditions give some neurodivergent individuals competitive advantage. For instance, the extreme focus associated with ADHD, or the skills in spatial tasks associated with dyslexia. Some conditions, like OCD, may have even helped us survive and evolve as a species, because the characteristics of the disorder we now pathologize were beneficial for small group survival. While proponents of neurodiversity explore the advantages to having lots of different types of brains, one of the main things they work against is trying to reduce, cure, or eliminate the variety in human brain types. Since neurodiversities are often the result of functional brain differences, whether they be anatomical brain differences or chemical brain differences, there is no way to cure or eliminate any of the conditions associated with neurodivergence. There are medications which can make neurodivergent brain function more like a neurotypical brain in some cases, but many neurodiversity advocates say that without the stigma associated with being neurodiverse, that these types of medications wouldn't be necessary. Forcing everyone to have a brain that looks and behaves like a neurotypical brain would be a lot like forcing everyone to have a nose job just so everyone's noses would look the same. We would miss out on a lot of awesome noses that way. Instead, neurodiversity advocates want to shift the focus from medicating neurodivergence to educating neurotypicals. One of the biggest controversies surrounding the neurodiversity movement is that it may ignore the issues impacting neurodiverse individuals with intellectual disability. This is a very valid concern. A movement about acceptance would never want those who identify as neurodiverse to feel excluded. But since the neurodiversity movement covers such a broad array of varieties of brain types, it may be difficult to address these concerns based on individual diagnostic barriers. For instance, the diagnostic criteria for autism state that those whose difficulties could be better explained by intellectual disability should not be diagnosed with autism. Yet, there is a larger percentage of clinically diagnosed autistic intellectually disabled people than one would expect to find in a neurotypical population. Intellectual disability and autism is definitely a topic that really deserves its own individual video, but I did want to highlight that downplaying intellectual disability could be a justified criticism of the neurodiversity movement. If the neurodiversity movement is dominated by people who are able to self-advocate, there's a risk that the interests of those with different needs may not be well represented. This is, I think, the next challenge for the neurodiversity movement, making sure the core values accommodate all those who fall under the neurodiverse umbrella. If you want to see more videos from us about neurodiversity, make sure you hit that bell notification, since we'll be covering neurodiversity-related topics all this month. Or, if you want to see more right away, check out our autism and neurodiversity playlist. If you want to know more about your brain or your nose, make sure you subscribe to Psy vs. Psy so you can get all of our other videos and you can learn all about the science of psychology. Until next time, keep thinking, and I'll see y'all later. Bye! I was going to do a joke about noses, but I didn't know which nose to pick.